Today only we're going to work with this leather leaf. Again, then we're going to, flowers are floating on this rim of vase, whether it's 550 or 500. Nothing touches the bottom of the vase, because when it does, it has a very stiff look. So you're going to grid. This is architecture. I'm telling you, most of my job is architecture. I'm going to remove most of the stem, and I'm going to do this. Oh, draw a picture of the vase and put all stems land here. And then put another parenthesis here and another one here that says clog the drain. So, here we go. I take my first piece of green and go across the vase and slightly down the drain. I take my, what have I created? A 6-pointed star. Do you all see that? Right? 6-pointed star. Now I want you to write this down. 6 in the lower deck, 4, 3 in the kisses, all in the upper, up in the penthouse. 6 in the lower. This is in the lower deck. Got it? Right? Now we're going to put a 4-pointed star, a 3-pointed star, and a kiss right down the middle. Watch how this goes. Still removing most of that stem. Notice nothing's touching the bottom of my vase. Right down the middle in the penthouse. 1, don't pat this down. Everybody wants to pat them down. Leave that standing up. Take your next piece, overlap. 2, take your next piece, overlap. 3, take your next piece. And these lower brackets have to go below that rim of that glass. So you're always tucking it down that drain. Now, I did a 6, a 4, and now I'm going to do a 3. If this is too big, you can clean it up a little. Now we leave a little bit of stem on because we do have to go into the water a couple inches, and I'm going to do 1, 2, and 3. And last but not least, I was taught this 20 years ago, and I never forgot, the kiss. Right? Remember I said, were they growing this way or that way? They were growing this way, so use them that way. So you put a little bit of stem on there, and right down the middle, the kiss. If it looks a little loose, I'll say kiss it again. 2 more pieces together, and right down the middle. Look what happens. It's pretty already, isn't it? Looks like a green plant growing in a vase. When you've gridded your greens, look at the magic. Wherever you stick a flower, they automatically stick, instead of flopping all over your vase. Interesting, isn't it? I've created a holder in lieu of that foam. Got it? Now, write this down, 6-5-1. Here we go. 1.5, you can cut it right on the edge of your table. If this is sitting on top of my vase, 1.5 would be right there. This is what lay people do. They hold them like this. You need to learn to hold flowers like a writing pen. Dear John, sorry. Okay? Don't hold it like this. Hold it low. Underneath the greens, you're going to do 6 in the lower deck, and you feed it across the vase. It's hitting right over here. 1. Next flower, 1.5 times the height of your vase. Whoop. Right there. And you can fit that one in. 2, it's like placing 6 chairs around your dining room table, 1.5 times the height of your vase. 3. These are all the techniques you're going to learn in the school that every designer does every day when they go to work and they have to produce gorgeous flowers all day. It's based on these techniques. 4, so 1.5, 6 of them, 1.5 times the height of my vase, right there. And my last one, number 6, right there. If I put a piece of glass here, I'd have a coffee table, right? Then I tweak them. 6, what's the next number I gave you? Twice the height of my vase, so right there. And there's going to be a little campfire of roses sitting. If this is the penthouse, right, everybody? It's going to be just slightly off the penthouse. So if this is the penthouse, it's going to be just slightly off the penthouse, and you get your hand in there, and you're going to feed your flowers into these greens, and look how perfectly that stays. Notice it's not touching the bottom, so I can adjust it. There's 1, twice the height of my vase. If there's any thorns, you can pick them off now. Get that in there. 2, twice the height of my vase. You can put a little campfire right here, 5 roses sitting around. Get them away from that lower 6. 2. 3. Last one, twice the height of my vase. 4. And twice the height of my vase. Pick off any thorns that are going underwater. And 5, right? What's the last number I gave you? 1. I call it run up the flag. 2.5 times the height of your vase. So you're not going to cut very much off. Nice angle cut. Right there. Boom. Look at that. Perfect roses every time. It's just like in the movies, 6-5-1. Right? Now, a lot of florists would send it out this way, but I'm training you to be top designers. So what you're going to do is you're going to re-green this whole thing, following that formula. You're going to start all over and re-collar it all around. 1, you're going to do the star within a star again, all around. 2, again, all technique. This enables you to do perfect flowers every time. If you pick up flowers from the grocery store and you have 10, do 5, 4, and 1. If you have 2 dozen, you just double up the rows or add more rows, right? It's not just for roses. You could do this with any flower to have perfect flowers arranged in your vase. So notice I'm putting this nice collar. Then where am I going next? Upper deck. Cover up all those naked stems in the upper deck, like that. Put some nice greens, put a little greens up in the penthouse even. Notice the leaves come up to the head of the flower. Do not go beyond the flower and start covering up. The greens should come up to the head, not covering. So now we have a beautiful dozen roses arranged, and you play with them and tweak them a little bit. You know, some roses are a little curvy, they don't sit quite as well. And you have this beautiful vase arrangement like this. And now the guy yells, don't forget the baby's breath. So you say, well, I have some very fragrant wax flower or lepto that you can add. So whatever filler you're going to add, you're going to do it the same way. Right here. Remember that first piece of green I put in here when I started? Let's say it was right there, in between the roses. 1. And follow the same formula. 2. That's why all my students design beautiful work all the time. Because it's easy to do this. This is what you do as a top designer. You follow these patterns. I'm getting these all into the water, yes, but I'm doing this. Feeding your flowers into your design. You've got to feed them. You try and do this, hold it like this, and you're fighting. And you're breaking them, and they're coming out like this. So hold them low, like a writing pen, dear John, and get your hand in there and find that air hole. It's like surgery. See that? Oh, there's that hole. There's where that kidney is. I got to pull out. You just get it in there. So what am I doing now? I'm putting some in the upper deck, right? I put some in the lower deck, put some in the upper deck. Nice refined piece. Just tell the story of the rose bush, right? Remember I said the top rose. What's on the top of a rose bush? That rose reaching for the sun, trying to survive. That's the story. If it looks a little open, I'll even peel it down to tell the story of that bud trying to survive by reaching for the sun. So I'm going to put a little filler in the upper deck. I'm going to put a little bit in the lower deck. I'm going to put a little bit all around the decks. And when I'm done, look how pretty. You have a beautiful vase arrangement. If you can do this, you're very employable. On February 12th, 13th, and 14th of every year, they will find you. Don't worry about it. We do hundreds of these on Valentine's. What's the #1 flower in America? A rose, yes. There's a hierarchy. We're going to talk about that later in the semester. When you design bouquets, you line them up according, it's like a poker hand. The queen of the show, right? We're going to talk about that later. So there you go. Beautiful flowers every time. Pretty, right? That's what you do. And you say to your driver, there you head. You're going to put the delivery tag on there and out it.
I'm just going to use a little bit of pot tape just to secure. Now we could do a bit here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our greenery first and create a base for our flowers. So this is French Ruscus and it's got a beautiful shape. Now the good thing with this is that we can use material for just splitting down into different units. So if I take that end, now I'm going to use the other one so that we end up with 2 tips. So this tip can come this way. Problem is once you cut it, you end up with pieces that are good for working within the design, but they are like blunt units, so they're not so good for making an end. It's okay, but you have that damaged bit. So I'm just breaking this down into little sections and just putting that through our design. So really I'm going length, and then just working. It's obviously on a smaller scale. when we tend to do like a big spray of flowers, we tend to make it wider in the middle and more diamond shaped. If you're looking quite high with a spray, would be the traditional kind of dimensions that you would work to. With this, we don't necessarily need to come up. We can make this more like a bar of flowers actually. So essentially we've got our base of the ruscus. I've got some nice leather leaf fern, and this is quite a pop. Source some when you're out with the dog, or you could take it from the garden. But just be careful that you're taking it from somewhere that you're allowed to take it, and that you're not picking anything that's poisonous neither. So that leather leaf is just going to add the flowers, because the foliage will give you a dimension to work within. And it's a lal. So this is like a Gaultheria. And again, I'm just popping a wee bit of this in to create a change in texture, a contrast in our foliage a couple of times and pierce through. And this is quite a nice way of giving us a little bit of a interesting effect as well. And we can put one either side. But really, foliage-wise, just use what you've got. You don't need to get fancy. But those little bit bigger leaves just take a little bit of weight into the middle. So I think what we'll do next is we'll use our roses. So I've got this beautiful lilac-y coloured rose. And what I want to do is I want to find two that are smaller. So this one's a bit smaller, and we're going to bring these out longwise. And this is really bringing us to the dimensions that we want our flowers to sit within. And then with our next roses, so I've got 5 roses here. I'm going to do one to that side and one to this side. And then we're going to do one in the middle. So I don't want this to sit up high. I want this to sit lower so that the whole thing is more a little bit like a bar of flowers. So don't ever be stuck. So essentially we've spaced our roses out across the whole design, and now we can look at our other flowers. So I don't tend to use lilies a lot because they're so easily crushed, but this is an Asiatic lily, and it's got beautiful big open flower. So I just wanted to use these for here, and we can bring them in and just really put them back to back. And this bud will open, so we can put that more in the center. And just to balance it, on this side we'll put our buds as well, the rest of our buds. So essentially what we've got is we've got 2 focal flowers that create a line here. So we've got a line of roses and we've got a line of lily as well. So our next flower that we're going to use is the little Santinis, and I just think these are really cute. They're like a little button chrysanthemum, and we can just, again, look at our stem, split them down into maybe a little unit like this, where we've got 2. Then we can split this one. Now, so what I've got here is I've got the final bit where we've got a long piece. So this is what I want to keep for going out at the ends. Now you're thinking, oh, this is ugly. But what we can do is we can basically put that in, and as we add more materials we can cover that. So we've taken the flower out, but it's still able to access the foam and have that source of water. And just add them. Now I've picked a range of materials for using for this. Just because I've got things in my bucket doesn't mean that we have to use them all. And that's quite important. Sometimes it's better just to add what you're needing at that moment and hold a little bit back and see if you actually need it. Because if you don't need it, you'll just end up putting everything in and it'll start to look really cluttered. So we don't want to do that. Another point to and really use that to good effect. It also has a nice smell and a nice look, but we can break it down into quite a lot of little bits. It's got a nice straight stem as well, or a nice firm stem, so we can put that into the foam quite easily. So, just adding this. If you had a really, really long table, there's no reason why you couldn't make 2 or 3 of these and space them out along the length of the table. You could then add things like a candelabra or candles in between. So you could really build up quite a nice run of flowers without having to make a solid run of flowers. What we try and do is aim to put out a video every Tuesday, so keep that in mind and we look forward to seeing you for our next video. Well, I could line this with plastic and we could use foam, but what I want to use is actually just a couple of jam jars. So just a couple of jars that you might use for pickling. And the first thing I need to do then is put water into these. So yeah, I think it's all one thing going to a shop and seeing lots as well. So all we need now is the flowers. So I have an old lilac tree outside here, and it's nice. And lilac can be expensive. To buy it, it's expensive. So if you have got it in the garden, then I think, why not cut some and enjoy it? Because you would actually pay quite a lot of money to have it as a bought material. And the great thing is, if you do have the space and you have a lilac tree, you're going to get this every year, which is amazing. Lilac can be a little bit funny or a little bit temperamental, so it is worth cutting it in the morning before the sun comes up or before it gets hot and let it have a really good drink. There's nothing more to we call that conditioning. When you are conditioning, you don't want to cut on a node, you want to cut a nice clean cut on an angle. That increases the surface area so that your flowers can get a good drink. Also nice and clean because you don't want bacteria to really evolve in your water. And then really just the actual conditioning is really that they just get a good opportunity to hydrate. So this is our little lilac base. And this is actually going to give us a bit of a framework as well for putting in our tulips. So I really only want to use the one type, which is this one. I think these are just beautiful. Now last autumn I went and bought a load of bulbs and I put them into the garden, and I've been kind of avidly watching to see what they were going to do, when they were going to come up, and now they're up and they're looking great. And you kind of forget what you planted. So it's a bit of a nice surprise to yourself to actually see what turns up. So we can even use like these leaves, like I cut the stem there, gives me a leaf on a stem that I can use within there. If you've got any wee bits that are showing a little bit of damage, that's okay. You know, plant material is basically real flowers in the real world. They're not all perfect. So it's not a problem to show a little bit of a damaged leaf or a damaged stem. It's not the end of the world. Now, I think what works well with this is that the actual tulip flower has basically a lighter colour on the tip. So that makes it tie in with our container rather than just using different colours. Like I have this one as well, which is absolutely gorgeous. In fact, we might put this in as well. Because let's face it, more is more, as they say. But I am conscious that there's not a huge amount of room in here. And I don't really want it all just to feel squished in. That would be a shame. But this is really just a simple arrangement that you can do at home. And I think people don't realise the opportunity that flowers can bring if you start to do flowers regularly for yourself. So it's one thing talking about commercial floristry, but there's a really missed opportunity for people to bring flowers into their own lives and to get creative, but also it's very therapeutic. It's very enjoyable. You can actually do it with your friends. You can create a little group, get together and make little arrangements. There's lots of inspiration out there on places like Pinterest. You really don't need to be clever or fancy. You can just use materials and flowers that you can find easily and just get creative. So I do recommend getting hands-on. If you've never made an arrangement, make this your weekend, give it a go, and you will really enjoy it. You don't need to rush. I tend to put things together kind of quickly because I'm conscious that we're doing a video and you don't want to watch me for half an hour. But take your time, enjoy it. It's not necessarily about where you end up, it's about the actual doing it. And I'm just making sure that all these materials are down into the water. We don't want to have pieces that are missing the water or not going to get any more of a drink. I do think I want a little piece of lilac in there. And that's it. It's really as simple as that. We can make it more complicated if we want, or we can keep it quite simple. What you could do if you wanted was you could add a little clothes peg in, or bring in a little detail, just to make you look twice, but left natural. And if we want to do detail, we can have them here and you just get a glimpse of them there. So that was today's video, using materials that are easily found in your own home, and just to show that it's straightforward to make a design. Don't be scared, just have